Right, and welcome back. In this video, I thought it'd be important to kind of cover properties of SOLIDWORKS files, maybe in a little more detail than I have in other videos. Um, kind of get everybody on the same page and maybe explain things in a little more detail uh, than you might have already understood. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. We want to go ahead and start a new. We always want to start with the part. Parts are like the ground, and so we build everything off of those as we go. So here's a brand new part, and go ahead and turn my planes on. Well, come on. There we go. And so this is what you would see if you started a brand new part. And if you wanted to make a template part, this would be the time to do it. And since I'm not really going to be drawing anything, this would be the time to also go over the properties. So we go up to File and Properties. And as you see, I already have some properties filled in. If you're starting a brand new part, you probably don't have any of these filled in unless you've already done this and saved it as a template. But you want to have property names of description, material, finish, and weight in the part file. Now I have added part number as one of the properties that I want in my template. And all of the types are going to be text. In the value text expression over here in this column, this is the description for whatever your part is. In one of our exercises in the book, we have a Geneva wheel, we have a ratchet plate, we have lots of different things. Well, this is where you would want to put that description of a Geneva wheel or a ratchet plate, or maybe it's a mounting lug or connecting rod, or something, whatever that is. That's what you want to put here. In our part number field, this is where, if you're working for a company, they are going to give you the part number, or they're going to tell you how to get the part number for what you're drawing. For the purpose of classes, in the class that I'm teaching, this is where we're going to put the chapter number dash exercise number. It's really just an identification number to identify what part we're drawing. Next, we have material, and if you notice, I have a little formula here. This is a drop-in formula from our drop-down menu called material. And so that's how I got that in there. And my part, if you notice here, doesn't have any material specified, so therefore the evaluated value says material not specified. These others, the evaluated value is what we typed in. The next field, finish, there's no drop down for it unless you have set up a global variable and done some background work to add that to the drop down menu. Otherwise, this is what we're just going to type this value in. Like if it's a machined part, we'll just type machined. If it's a painted part, we might type in here paint and then whatever color. If it's stainless, maybe we want it polished, so that polished would go in here. And so then the evaluated value would be just whatever that is. The weight, we have a drop-down pick for weight that's called mass. And then it fills in the weight of the part. Once we have a part drawn, it will fill this weight in based on the mass properties of the part. And so that is all you need for a part file. These values will then be fed into our bill of material or our title block or whatever we pull this part into. It will grab these properties. So I'm going to click OK. And I already have a template file, but how you would save this as a template file would be as you just go to Save, Save As, change this part here to Part Templates, and then you just save this as whatever you want your part template name to be. Mine is just part.prtdot. And so that's all it takes to create a template file. Next, we want to go ahead and start a new assembly file. These are the intermediate files in SOLIDWORKS. Sometimes we have parts that go directly to drawings, or many times we do actually. Other times we bring them into an assembly first. And so we want to have properties, which is the same place. Properties. And so we want to have properties for the assembly that makes sense for the assembly. We might have a description. We might have a part number for the assembly. We might have a probably not a material, because the material is going to be picked by the parts. But we could have a weight, and this would be the sum of all of the parts in the assembly that would become the weight. Let's see. The finish. We could have a finish, because if we have a bunch of welded parts that we're bringing together in this assembly, we might have a finish that we've chosen. Maybe we've chosen to paint that assembly. So we might have a finish, but that's probably, if we look down through our list here, that's probably everything that we want for an assembly file in general. Now, your company might have more stuff that you want to bring in, but this is the typical stuff that you'd probably have. Over here in the value text expression, we would have the same thing as we would for the part file. Whoops. And then for the part number, just a number for now as a placeholder. The weight, again, this is going to be mass. Finish is just going to be a typed in value. So I'm just going to type finish, because that's going to be filled in by whatever we want the assembly to be. And then we can click OK. Just to make sure that it's saved, we can go back to Properties, and sure enough, it's saved. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And that's our template for the assembly. And just like the part, we can do a Save As, change this, and go to Assembly Templates. And I haven't saved in an assembly template, so I'm going to go ahead and save assembly. Yep, I want to replace the existing. And now I have an assembly template. Next, I want to go back up to New and Drawing. These are going to be the top level files for SOLIDWORKS every time. No matter if it's a part file or an assembly file, these are going to be the top level drawing, the top level file. Now, if you have an assembly or a part open, it's going to automatically want to pull that in if you start a file or a drawing file. I don't want to pull that in because I want to bring in whatever file, whatever drawing or part or assembly. I want to pull that in because I'm making this a template file. So I'm going to cancel that, and I like B size as my standard layout, so I'm going to leave that. But right here we want to make sure and change what the default says here, which if you haven't done this all before, this says insert company name here. Well, since I'm doing this for the purpose of demonstration and education, I put my name in here instead. But to fix that or to modify that, I'm going to back up and I'm going to right click on sheet 1. I'm going to go to edit sheet format. Now I'm going to zoom back in on that. I'm going to double click, and then I can edit the text that's in that box. Now I'm going to make this look a little nicer than having all this space here and here. So I'm going to delete, go over here, and just kind of fix up what this looks like in the box. And that looks pretty good. So now I'll click outside the box, and it saves, and that looks a lot nicer than what the old format looked like. So now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to pan over to kind of show you the title block, what it looks like in its default format. Notice these formula looking names here. These are showing you the formula because we didn't pull a part or an assembly into the drawing. These fields would be filled in by the properties from either the part file or the assembly file, whichever one you pulled into this drawing. So this PRP sheet material is going to pull the material from the part file or the assembly. This finish is going to come from the assembly or the part file as well. Same with the description, same with the weight. But this one, this drawing number, many companies will have this pull from the file name because they're going to save the file as the part number. Well, in our case, we're not going to do that, and so we need to change this. By default, SOLIDWORKS set this up to pull that file name because most companies are going to pull that file name for their drawing number because it's the part number. So if you're working for a company and watching this video, you probably don't want to mess with this because you probably want to follow your company's standard, which is probably, as I described, pulling the file name instead. So you don't want to mess with that. But if you're doing this for yourself or for education purposes, we can modify this to pull that part number field from our assembly or part file instead of the file name. How we do that is we highlight it so we're modifying the text. When we just type in $PRPSHEET quote, and start that over because it messed up on me. colon, quote, oops, quote, P-A-R-T, whoops, capital N-O, caps, case sensitive, so make sure you type it the same as your property name, and then when you put the other double quote, it changes it to this formula. Now you don't want to type it like it shows here, or it won't work. You want to type it as you've seen me type it. Now that name is too long, but that's okay, because it's not going to fill in this name. It's going to fill in the number that we put in that property field. So that's all I want to change here. And so I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this and zoom to fit. Now I want to go up here to File, whoops, and Properties. And if you'll notice, I've already got a bunch of properties already filled in. These are typical fields that you want to have filled in order to fill in the title block. Company name, this is going to be whatever your company name is. In my case, since this is a demonstration for education purposes, I'm putting the university name, and then drawn by and drawn date. The drawn by is my initials. The drawn date is the date that I originally did this. Checked by, my initials are going there as well. Check date and the date I did this originally as well. And then revision. Revision is going to start as a dash if this is the first drawing. Now this is where you want to come in and you want to change the revision to be whatever the drawing revision is if you are not drawing this as the first drawing. So the checked by is going to be whoever is checking your drawings. If you're working for a company and then you have someone that checks your drawings, their initials are going to go here. The date that they check it is going to go here. Your initials, of course, are always going to go in the drawn by, because you're the one that's creating the drawing. The date should fill in with whatever date you created the drawing. And so, as you've seen over here, these properties fill into the title block. So I'm going to click OK there, and I'm going to just zoom back in on that and point that out again. Drawn, my initials, and this is the drawn by. The drawn date, the checked by, initials, and the checked date. If there's two other fields we could have filled in the properties if we chose, and if your company, actually there's three of them, if your company uses these other fields, then you can put these into your properties, and then it would be the engineered by. Let's go to the properties real quick there and show you that. Scroll down here. So we have the engineering, whoops, didn't want to click on that, sorry. The engineering approval, this would be that engineering approval right here, and this would be the name, so it would be their initials. The date, of course, would be the date that they approved it. The manufacturing approval is whoever approves manufacture of this item. The manufacturing approved date would be whatever date they did, of course. QA or quality assurance approval, that person, and the date. So there's a few more properties that you can use, and I don't want anything to fill in there, I'm actually going to highlight that row and delete it because I don't want that property to fill in on my title block. And so I'm going to click OK. And of course the revision is right here, pulling from the properties. So now I'm going to, there we go, zoom out a little bit. All right, so now I'll show you how all this works. Close my drawing. Sure, I'll just go ahead and save it. Whoops, nope, don't want to save that. That's a, I want to do a save as because I made a change to my template right there. So then we drawing template, and I'll do that right there. Click yes. Now I'll go ahead and close that. I'm going to go ahead and close the assembly as well, and I'll just create a small sample part here, and I'm not going to bother with fully defining it or any of that stuff right now. I'm just wanting to bring in the properties of this object to show how the properties come in. Turn my planes off there. We'll click OK. And I just have this block. So now I'm going to go to the properties. I'm going to type block. I'm going to leave the part number like that. Material and the finish I'm going to leave as plain. Just a plain finish. It's already filled in the weight based on whatever not specified for the material is. It's already filled in the weight of 0.43. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to go and choose a material. And I'm going to go ahead and choose just plain carbon steel. It changes the color first and changes the mass properties as well. So if you come up here to evaluate, you can see what those mass properties are. And here's the mass, so 3.35 pounds. If I go to my properties, there's that 3.35 pounds. The plain carbon steel also came through, so we can click OK. I need to save this. Oops, I don't want to save it there though. I'll put it in my demo files. Just properties demo. Save that. Now I want to go ahead and pull that into an assembly just to show you how all that comes together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place one, and then I'm going to insert another one of those right there, and I'm going to call that good. I'm not going to worry about constraining these together or any of that. I'm just going to have them right there like that. I'm going to come up here to my file and go properties. It did not bring in my template, so I'm going to close this. So I'm going to go here, advanced. Here's where my assembly template should be. Drop that there. Place another one real quick. And we'll go up to File Properties, and sure enough, there's my stuff. So this is my test assembly. My part number, I'm going to say that this is a 654321 part number instead. The weight, it's taking the sum of the two parts and putting that weight there. And I'm going to say this is painted. Alright, so now I'm going to save that as my demo assembly. Make sure properties are all okay. Everything has been modified, so we're good. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my part file and just verify that my properties are all modified there as well. And sure enough. Okay. So now, go back to my assembly and click New. I want a new drawing. I'm going to go here, grab that one because it should be the right one. I'm going to check that by going to the properties real quick. Yep. Okay. So here's my drawing. And layout view, because I didn't have that pop-up box show up, I need to go to layout view, choose model view. Now it brought up both the part and the assembly. So I'm going to do the part first. Click my next. And I'm going to go ahead and choose multiple. Choose my top, front, and right side views. I'll throw in an ISO view as well. But I want that to be it doesn't give me the option for a true isometric view, so I'm going to leave that alone. So click OK. I brought it in anyway. Alright. So there's my views, and already, nope, it didn't bring it in yet. Let's try saving it real quick. There we go. So once we save, it brought in the title information, it brought in my initials here and the date, the part number for my single part, the material for my single part, and the finish for my single part. And there's the weight, the 3.35. So next, I'm going to add a sheet. Oh, there we go. B landscape. All right. So now I'm going to add a model view of my assembly. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Whoops, multiple views though first. My top, front, and right side. I'm going to go ahead and add an isometric of it as well. And click OK. There's my views. Click Save real quick. And it updated the title block with my information. Now, the one thing that it didn't do is it didn't grab the proper title block to fill in my drawing information here or here. So that's something you'll want to be careful of if you're adding a sheet to an existing drawing, because if we go back to our original sheet, activate that, it filled in all the information properly. And if I go up and start a new drawing and choose the assembly, basically do the same thing that we just did, and click OK, and then save, but I can't call it, oh, I can do the demo assembly drawing. Now it brings in the proper information. Now most of the time, this is what you're going to have, is a single sheet for the assembly and a separate drawing for the part. Once in a while you'll have an assembly with the part. And for that, we need to make sure and choose the proper sheet to bring that in. We may have to come back to that. But be aware that the second sheet may not have that information modified like we changed ours. Now, if you're working for a company and you're using their templates probably work properly and have all the information regardless of how many sheets that you use, if they are used to using multiple sheets. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that sheet for right now. And I'm going to go back to my assembly sheet. I'm going to go ahead and remove the isometric view, and I don't need the side view either for this one. So now I'm going to go ahead, go to Annotation, Tables, and I'm going to add a bill of material. I need to select the view, standard bill of material, and I can drop it here or I can drop it here, whichever convention your company uses or your class is going to use is going to work just fine. And here we're going to have to do some more work to get that part number to fill in properly as well. But I'm going to save that for another video, as the purpose for this one was just simply to cover how to get the properties filled in and where to fill them in at. And so that concludes this demonstration, and I hope it's helped your understanding of properties and how they work just a little bit better.